this is a pretty classy event, so I was going to wear a tux. Do you think that's appropriate? Is that going to be
totally?
No, we're all renting tuxes. Tux,
okay? Now, tell me how funny would that be if we all showed up in tuxes in Buffalo Trace? People are like,
we're here for the pick.
What the heck is wrong with you guys?
This episode of Bourbon Pursuit is made possible through listeners like you, supported through Patreon. Hey everyone, we're back with the first community roundtable of 2018. We had around 50 viewers live on this one, so if you want to be a part of the next one, make sure you're following Bourbon Pursuit, Breaking Bourbon, as well as Bourboner on all the social media channels. It usually takes place on a Monday or Tuesday every 3, maybe sometimes 4 weeks, but usually about 3 weeks is our cadence. Thank you to everyone who keeps this podcast running by supporting us through Patreon. If you want a Bourbon Pursuit t-shirt and be entered into the monthly drawings, visit patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit and choose a monthly donation amount that works for you. Plus, the Buffalo Trace barrel pick that we talk about on this episode that we're doing for the Community Roundtable will be going to Patreon members before they hit the public. And that's even if there's going to be enough left for the public. And as a reminder, please fill out our audience survey. It only takes 3 minutes and gets you entered to win a $50 Amazon gift card. We only need about 150 more responses to go, so make sure you go there and you do that and you select all the brands that you learned about because of this show. bourbonpursuit.com/survey. With that, enjoy this week's episode. Welcome back to the episode of the Bourbon Pursuit Podcast, the official podcast of Bourbon, the #1 podcast of Bourbon. We are back with the fan favorite Bourbon Community Roundtable, and this is episode 16 of it. I want to say it's a big monumental moment right here. I mean, 16 times we've been able to do this. Before we know it, when we end up 2018, we'll end up with like maybe 25 or 30. I have no idea. It's going to be a lot, but this is always a fan and a crowd favorite because we take care of this. We do it all on YouTube Live. So we've got almost 45 viewers on right now. We've got a bunch of people in the chat. They're just talking about some questions that we should talk about. They're talking about what they're drinking. And so it'll be a pretty good episode because we've got a few different things to talk about. But before we do that, as usual, we're going to go around the table and people can introduce where they blog or where they do anything from. But of course, your host, Kenny, as well as always, Ryan on here as well. So Ryan, welcome, buddy.
How you doing? Hey, Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to see everyone.
First roundtable.
Happy New Year.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and start with Blake. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, so Happy New Year, everyone. Good to be back in 2018. I'm Blake from Bourboner.com. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Bourboner Group, newly revitalized Facebook Bourboner Group. And stop in any of those places and say hello.
Awesome. There's going to be no interruptions tonight because Carrie's gone. So this should go well.
It goes so much smoother and quicker now.
I was going to take a shower halfway through, though. So
yeah.
Just so you guys know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick, since you chimed in there.
Yeah, I'm Nick, breakingbourbon.com. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And watch the release calendar. We got the new 2018 loaded up. You can still access the previous years. You'll find a link at the top for 2017 and links at the very bottom for the previous years there. And we'll be rolling out a bunch of new releases here as we start to get word. But it feels a little slow right now. So, kind of watching for what's coming new in 2018. We got our big new 2018 Bourbons and Whiskeys article getting loaded up here. So we're trying to kind of compile what we see happening for this year. So it's a little sparse on the release calendar right now, but hope that fills in nicely as it usually does.
I was about to say, do you guys usually look in your magic 8-ball and figure, oh, maybe this is what's going to come out about this time of the year?
We gather a lot of that info from, we got a lot of people now that send us info. Right now, it's been a little bit slow, and it seems like there's always a handful of releases that are kind of, maybe it might happen. There's little hints around, it hasn't really been officially, out there from the producer or distiller yet. And we try to grab onto at least a couple of those. They tend to get people talking, sometimes just a couple tidbits are all you need to, lead into what's going to be a release, or at least what people maybe want to see. So there'll be a couple things that don't hit the release calendar, probably hit the new whiskeys of 2018 that may or may not become real releases, but I think those are some of the more fun ones.
Yeah, we love the speculation a little bit sometimes because it gets people talking, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Ooh, us speculate? No.
And there's our resident lawyer. So Brian, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, Happy New Year, everybody. Brian with Sippin' Corn. You can find me on my blog is a Google blog spot, Sippin' Corn. Find me on Twitter and a little bit on Facebook too, Sippin' Corn.
Well, good. I guess that kind of, Blake had kind of mentioned the new and upgraded groups. And if anybody remembers the last roundtable, I did my fair share of closet cleaning when I talked about how the bourbon community has really gotten worse in the past year. And it seemed literally in the span of maybe 3 to 4 weeks, not only just your group, Blake, but even Bourbon Info Exchange, it seems like people have turned over a new leaf. It's pretty, it's good to see. And I think a lot of the rules that you changed made that as well. So kind of talk about some of those rule changes you did to help try to clean up the form itself.
Yeah. So, I think it's just taking more of an active approach with everything. The biggest rule we changed was no more unopened bottle picks. If you're familiar with these Facebook groups, you get a lot of what's called the crotch shot. The guy buys a bottle, walks out to his car, sticks it between his legs, takes a picture. Like, I've never taken one myself, so I don't know what the point or purpose of that is. So we got rid of any unopened bottles, which got rid of all those pictures. And then it also got rid of the person just standing in front of store shelves saying, "Hey, I'm at the store. What should I buy?" It's like, well, that's not to say that that's the lazy man's way of handling the bourbon groups, but there's been thousands and thousands of posts. Just do a little research on a bottle, or just get a bottle, try it, put a review up. So, it's kind of getting back to the enthusiast mentality for the bourboner group, and instead of just having people show up, "Hey, give me the information." Like, no, kind of work for it a little bit. And that sounds a little, maybe a little snobby at times, but I think it's really improved the group and really improve the community aspect of it as well, because it seems like there's a whole lot less fighting and people getting upset and all that kind of stuff as well. So far so good. And just constantly monitoring, making sure, just booting people quick. I hate to say it, but I've booted quite a few people just for kind of borderline comments, but it's like, look, if you can't play nice, I don't want to spend my time having to moderate you over the next 6 months. So we'll just
how quick did you have to get rid of Carrie?
Oh, he was gone before that new rule change. So no, I mean, I get it. Like, it's a bourbon group. You're here to have fun, joke around. Like, I don't have any problems with guys giving each other a hard time, but I think we all kind of know where that line is when you cross it and start making personal attacks on somebody. It's like, yeah, that's if that's where this has to go, then you're just kicked out. So it's funny. I got a few messages like, "Hey man, I'm no longer in the group. What happened?" Like, do I really need to screenshot you calling somebody a mother effing what blank? Like, I don't think I have to explain this to you. I think that should be self-explanatory. But no, so far so good.
I think it, I'm glad to see it happen because now you see all those admin dollars rolling in for all the time you spent on it.
Yeah. So I think the effective rate's up to like at least 25 cents an hour. So.
But at the same time, you always had, there's kind of like 3 avenues of people that always kind of got pissed, right? You've got like the dick swing picture when people have got like their closet full of BTAC and Van Winkles, and people all of a sudden they're just like, "Oh, I can't get my hands on a bottle." It's just a threat of just that, or there's somebody that does the crotch shot and they're pissed about it. And then some people will just have a picture of a bottle and say like, "Oh, I'm going to save this for never," right? And they get mad and say like, "Oh, whiskey's for drinking, not for looking at," right? Yeah. And so that really starts a lot of those arguments in those groups of people that just have a polarizing opinion of just what you should be doing with your whiskey, right? So making sure that you only have open bottles pretty much sets the standard of, okay, this is how it is now.
Yeah. So and I think people got a little confused with this is a Facebook group. This isn't your personal Instagram account. Even though there are 15,000 Bourboner members in this group, not all of them. Yeah, it's not your platform. They have not subscribed to look at your pictures. So feel free to post them on Instagram and Twitter because the people who want to follow you can see them. But we've kind of agreed as a group, this is what we want to see. And it's more reviews, more talking about like in-depth stuff. So I think that's a common misconception sometimes is like, this is not your platform. This is a community platform. So
and somebody, I don't know if it was in that group or a different group. I think it was in the Bourboner group. Somebody posted a comment a while back about, what is it about bourbon that gets people so riled up and heated about things? Is that unique to bourbon, or, as a hobbyist enthusiast type of thing? And I'm not, I guess, too enthusiastic about other stuff where I'm in chats and groups to the extent I am of bourbon. So I don't really have experience with, are there other groups that are like that? But I think the comment had just something to the tune of, this is the only type of hobby or thing that I'm involved in where I see this kind of, this kind of attitude. So I don't know if that is unique to bourbon or just because we're so in it so deep.
Yeah, I would disagree.
Yeah, I would say sports. I could see sports for sure. I get sports.
Beer is actually way worse.
Do you think so? So I'm not involved in craft beers. So
yeah, I think it is. The funny thing is, I had I guess he's like my cousin-in-law or something was telling me over Christmas. He's in a kickball group, a local kickball group, and guys just like go after each other. I'm like, oh, so it's not just bourbon nerds who hate each other online. Kickball nerds too.
But you get, the thing is with bourbon, you get us together and we're some of the best ever. And so I've never understood how well we share when we've got something good. And yet, everybody's at odds when they're online.
Well, when you're online, there's no, it's just a digital thing. There's no human touch. So you lose that when you're talking. You don't realize that there's another human on the other end of that. And so
it's much easier to just say something with no recourse, and you can't be punched in the face through the internet. So.
Right.
Well, and misinterpret tone. I mean, you're reading it verbatim. You have no idea the tone on the other side of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they could probably go for anything where anybody has an opinion. I mean, Kevin Brickerhoff says even guitar forums he used to post in were less than civil. John Brown said golf forums get pretty nasty too. And I could see that if somebody's really proud of their pings and somebody says, oh, that's shit, right? I mean, it's just, I'm sure that's pretty, it's pretty bad. And Kyle Anderson, watch forums. Sometimes, there's definitely even, believe me, watch snobs. There's people that
watches are.
Oh yeah. If you, especially for those people that spend like 30 grand on a watch versus those that are buying entry levels at 2,000 or something, it's definitely like you have these
2,000.
Catch
22 said political groups are the best. Yeah, I can imagine those don't get fired up at all.
Michael Urato said, go to a music page and say Rush sucks and see what happens. All right. So while we're on the topic of groups, this is something that Blake has been pretty good at. And I almost think that he could come up with a whiskey and food inspired cookbook coming out real soon, because the last one he just had braised oxtail and locally sourced grits, paired with his Hudson Valley, and it looked like it was something out of a cookbook. So is that something that you got going on for the future there? You just love sous videing everything and you just got to share it with the world.
That was a braise, so it's not exact. It's kind of sous videing, but not just something I like to do, and I like to dive into the nerdier side of things. So I did get a bunch of crap for that because I had my brother and my mom were coming over to watch the game. And I'm like, yeah, guys, don't worry. Dinner will be ready like 6:30 or 7. At 8:30, I think we finally started eating. I'm like, we can't really rush a braise here. So I got to get my picture in for Instagram as well. But no. I thought a while back about doing like a Bourboner Eats side blog, but as of now, just gonna post it up on Instagram. Then I don't have to put more work into it other than just cooking and eating.
All right, good deal. So we'll get on with an actual bourbon topic here. So it is now, as of January 1st, legal in Kentucky for people to sell their vintage spirits to liquor stores and bars, which then they can now resell to the public. And this has been, it's kind of been going on for a little bit, maybe under the covers here in locally here in Louisville with a whiskey bar downtown that will, that's be named because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, even though he's probably already in enough trouble. But anyways, this
is reasoning.
Yeah, but then also Cork and Bottle, one of the, Ed Bly, the very good friend of the show and very well-renowned liquor store up in Northern Kentucky, had actually posted on a few forums saying that they're now getting ready to start buying Prohibition or even just liquor that, they can, vintage spirits, not even pre-Prohibition or anything like that. They're ready to start buying vintage spirits so they can actually start reselling to the public. And they put information about how you can get in contact with the store to do that. So for you all, what do you kind of think is the impact of this? Because for me personally, I haven't seen any other store do this yet except for Cork and Bottle, especially not here in Louisville. I haven't heard anybody really talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get Brian's take on the actual rule around it. From what I've heard, there's no real. Is there a year cutoff, or it's basically just not in distribution anymore? And
well, let me go ahead and I'll give the definition. I'll have Brian give you his legal interpretation, and then you can start seeing the gray areas. So as of now, the definition is a package or packages of distilled spirits that are in their original manufacturer's unopened container are not owned by a distillery and are not otherwise available for purchase from a licensed wholesaler within the Commonwealth. End quote. And that is also thanks to Chuck Cowdery, who gave me this information as well. So, Brian, what is your legal
do we have to have a disclaimer before you do it, like on a Dave Ramsey show or something?
Yeah, this is no legal advice, something like that. Yeah. So that's right.
Cap on.
Yeah, that's right. Right now, that's all it says is that it's got to be unopened bottle. It's not owned by a distillery, and it can be now purchased by either a bar or a store retail operation. And it doesn't, and the key there is that it's not available in the Commonwealth. So does that mean Elijah Craig 12-year barrel proof B517 because it's sold out? Is that vintage? I think under the way this is written, that's vintage. I don't think you need to go to T.W. Samuel's pre-Prohibition to be vintage under this definition. Now, what we're still waiting on and what the KDA has been working on since last summer is the regulations for this. And that's what's going to define what vintage is. Because at least for Elijah Craig 12-year barrel proof, you've got batch names now, and you can tell which is which. But what about a Four Roses private barrel, single barrel that maybe was never available in the state because Lincoln Road did it? Or someone out of state did it. Can we now sell that? If I've got those bottles, can I sell them now?
What about just like Elijah Craig 12-year regular?
Yeah, because it's no longer.
Because it's discontinued. Yeah, that's exactly. So if you've got the red 12 on the front, or if you've got the 12 on the back, that's no longer available. That's technically vintage under the law right now. But again, we're still waiting on the regulations. So the stores that buy it, I looked up today the ABC website, the guidance that it gives, and all it says is that it gives an email address. Literally, that's all it does. This is what Ed's doing, and Ed's awesome. But all Ed needs to do is email this address on this press. It's not on this guidance, and he has to disclose who sold it to him, the quantity and the name of the product, the date of the sale, and then he has to give his own retail license number. That's all Ed needs to do, and he can buy any of these things from us.
They're not doing even like an add-on tax, or?
Well, the tax is when the retail sells it.
So then the retail will. I guess that's a win for the state because
right.
Then
so that's a 6% tax here when Ed sells it. Yeah.
Okay.
So when Ed sells it, they collect the 6% tax, but it's not taxed right now when you sell your bottle to Ed.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's a lot of gray area. Well,
It's-
I don't know
it's
if
a
it
ton
is
of gray area.
I think it's just
So like a liquor store pick that I'd done, like a Toddy's liquor store pick, and there's no more. I can sell that to someone. That would be okay.
That
no
falls
right
under
now.
that
Like a
would fall
four-month
under
barrel
the
pick.
category of not available within the Commonwealth. As long as it's sold out, as long as Toddy's it's been sold is what 2 years ago, whatever it was, it's not available. So that could be vintage, depending on how the regulations shake out.
they'll
Right
probably
now,
put a
without the
year in there,
regs-
don't you think?
Now,
that?
as a
Won't they put some kind of year in there, or hey, it's got to be pre 1985, or that's my birth year, so that's the first one that came to mind. But
same here.
I'm old.
yeah,
Yeah, me too.
Seller, I can only sell to liquor stores and bars. Is that correct?
Right, and they are the ones that have to be licensed to buy it. You don't have to be licensed to sell it.
But
Now,
weren't they?
do they have to?
captured?
Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Okay. No, go ahead.
So my question was, do they have to have like an additional license to go and buy this stuff? Or is it just at this point, anybody with a liquor retail license is it just at free will to go and purchase whatever they want?
Right now, that you need to have the vintage spirits license. You have to have an extra license to be able to buy it and then resell it.
Do you know what the process was to get that or go through it, or is it just apply?
I think it's filling out a form.
Go online, fill out a form.
Right.
Weren't they going to collect additional information about the seller too? That was something Cowdery had pointed out.
Yeah, right now when you send your information to the email address, you do have to just give your own and your retail license information and that other information. But right now, that's all that's required because, again, I don't know why they don't have the regs yet. I've been wondering that, and I'll have to follow up with KDA to see maybe where that is. But right now, it's pretty simple.
So I wonder if there'll be certain sellers that are like banned, or like a blacklist of sellers. I don't know.
Well,
That have
when they get caught for selling counterfeit. I mean, yeah. So now the risk, of course, falls on the bars and the retail sellers who buy this to make sure that it's not counterfeit. All the risk is on them because they're going to be selling.
Is there a process they have to go through to validate the validity of the bottle, or
not
just
yet.
like the buyer beware?
Yeah, I think that's going to be in the regulations too. But right now, there's nothing. So if you trust, I mean, I trust Ed. I'll buy anything from Ed that he vouches is authentic. But you got to be wary when you buy from anyone else.
Because basically you're buying from them. If it's in another situation, if you sell me something counterfeit, I can come back and sue or something. I assume I have some kind of recourse. But with this, I would go back to the store, and then I guess the store is trying to find the original seller if it's counterfeit.
Yeah, and that's a can of worms that no one probably tracked down. But that's why probably they have to report who they bought it from.
Okay.
So they've got that trail. So you've got to identify yourself when you're selling it. You can't sell it anonymously to a
no
store
Bitcoin transaction.
That's right.
It's a very bad version of the blockchain, if that's what you want to say.
But it's exciting. I mean, I've heard from several sources that there are warehouses full of vintage spirits for bars that are either opening or are going to have new bourbon available because of this law. Because now they can bring it in, now they can buy it. I mean, one of the purposes of this is to allow Kentucky to compete with New York and Washington. What's the place out there that has
Jack
the great?
Rose.
Yeah. So Jack Rose may even open a bar here, right? And bring some of that inventory and be able to get some of that inventory here from your great uncle's liquor cabinet or grandma's liquor cabinet. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there here in the state.
Now, when you said that warehouse, are you talking about just private collections that are now going to open up for potential buyers? Are you saying that actually distributors have been holding stuff back that can now sell stuff or something like that?
Well, what I've heard is that there are bars that are planning openings now in Louisville that have been stocking in warehouses vintage spirits, and we're going to have the same selection here in Louisville that you can get at Jack Rose.
See, on that, I mean, the economics of it still seems very difficult at this point in the market. Even if you're getting some rare bottle for $2,000, you get, say, what's probably 23, 24 shots out of it, 1 ounce pours.
And you got to make money on it.
Yeah, what's the standard markup like?
Yeah.
3 times or something. So
He's got to make about 3 or 4x on it, right? That's kind of usually how it has to work. And so I think that what Brian said makes sense, right? The people that have warehouses already stocked, that they can now open up and already have a decent menu of items that they can sell at a decent price. I don't necessarily see, in my opinion, a whole lot of people here in Louisville that are going to go and sell their bottles of Pappy 23 or even National Distillers Old Taylor or something like that for near secondary value, and then the restaurant or bar or whatever is going to rebuy it and try to sell it for 2 to 3x. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen because they're going to be priced too far out. So the way that Brian made it sound actually sounds like more reasonable of what I could see here relatively soon. I don't know.
It'll be interesting. I mean, I think they're probably banking on out-of-state visitors to the Bourbon Trail and being able to have all of these bottles available from 1918 through the 60s through the 70s, and get some Stitzel-Weller Rebel Yell that was dirt in the 80s is now sought after. Hey, what, $60 for a 2 ounce pour of that? It's crazy, but if someone has that, they can sell it now.
I think it's a great opportunity. If you're a retailer or you're a liquor store and you put it out there that you're buying, I think you're going to find a lot of people. If you can market that and advertise that, I think that would open up the market. I think there's still a lot of people who just aren't involved in the groups and the ways of the secondary, but they have bottles and they would sell them. If they could do it legally, they would. And of course they would sell it for less, and it's easy and it's legal. If that's known to them, I think they could few places could probably scrounge up a lot of bottles from around the country.
Yeah, I think it'll be beneficial to liquor stores too, because their allocation is so dried up, and people flocking to Kentucky, and they're like, we were talking to Guthrie, Kenny, about, they're looking for rare stuff and we don't have it, and they're like disappointed. But I feel like if they come here and they have rare stuff they're able to buy, they'll buy it. But maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. That's right. I mean, you take this big trip to Kentucky, you want to taste the different stuff. You're kind of on this vacation mode anyway. So it's like, I'll spend $80 on a pour or something from the 60s or whatever it is. Even if it's only 1 ounce, I still think there's a lot of people who would do that.
Yeah, I totally
agree. They do it in DC all the time, but it's a kind of it's a different market. I mean, you got lobbyists and politicians up there.
Everything's on.
You have a lot of people coming to Kentucky now, specifically for the trail, that would, bring big pockets, so to say.
Yeah,
I'm not too sure. I mean, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I think you guys made some really good points of having it be at a retail store where people have the opportunity. I honestly don't anticipate a whole lot that's going to be coming out of the retail market. I would say this is more or less going to be an effect for bars and restaurants, just because in the retail side, yeah, sure. I mean, I guess if you can buy it and resell it and make 15%, sure, I guess. I mean, but usually at 15%, you want to do volume at that point, right? And I don't know how much is it really worth it at that point to say I've got, $600 tied up into something to make $675, right? Like,
right.
I don't know if it makes sense like that on a retail side to be able to do and put that much effort into what you have to do to have actually a very much smaller market of actual buyers, right? Because these buyers are not coming here to buy these unicorns at above secondary prices at a retail store, right? A lot of people come here and they want to buy the Heaven and Hill bottle and bond. They want to buy store picks. They want to buy a lot of this stuff, right? I wouldn't say the majority of people actually come to the Bourbon Trail to go and try to find unicorns at Liquor Barn, right? Because everybody can go to.
Surprised. I think they do, and then
But they think they will. Yeah,
yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, they find out really quickly on the Bourbon or Facebook group when they say, like, I'm traveling to Louisville soon. Can anybody tell me their honey holes? And everybody's like, are you serious? Like, there's no such thing as a honey hole in Louisville anymore, right?
Yeah.
No.
But with retailers,
There's so many people that flock here that have no idea that there's actually no bourbon to be bought here. Like, that's rare.
Well, you'd be surprised in where they're coming from. I mean, I think you guys are still a little spoiled on a few things. You know, there's still the Heaven Hill bottled in bonds and those kind of things.
Big
not
variety.
you're not going to walk in and find Pappy 23. Yeah, Brian's waving a bottle there, but they'll still have it so good.
So, John,
retailers though, so with the retailer element, if they can kind of get the word out to buyers and they can get the word out to potential sellers, I mean, they may be able to connect the two dots of demand. And then they could work with that smaller margin. I mean, I can't imagine retailers are going to put hundreds of thousands of dollars into a few hundred bottles and just wait for somebody to maybe come in. I mean, maybe some of them will, but I don't think that fits the typical retailer model. But they can through online means and other means, just because they have a lot of people coming and asking for stuff. I mean, they can connect buyers and sellers, I think, and probably effectively handle transactions pretty quickly if they figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, I think
there might be an opportunity there.
A sourcing kind of deal,
right?
Rather than I would highly suggest that from an asset management standpoint, not sit on $100,000 in inventory of really cool bottles, waiting for the right buyer to come in to make 15% or 20% market.
Not worth
now,
it there.
Now, can a retailer buy from someone that doesn't live in Kentucky? Does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter where they are. They can now buy from anyone.
Okay.
But there was originally, I don't know if this was just the suggested rules and it didn't make it, but they were talking about requiring a record of the seller's vehicle, make, model, and license plate number, photographs of the bottles. I mean, did that not pass through
That might make it into the regulations, but right now, that as of today, when I looked at it, the ABC does not require that.
So if you're going to do it
just
now.
Requires those four
they
things.
figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Do it now when you got the email address, and it just asks for four things.
So John Brown has a question. He says, if this is going to be successful, do you think it has the possibility to spread past Kentucky?
No, I don't think any other state's nearly as motivated as Kentucky. Most states can't get the minor things changed, much less a complete overhaul. But I got a question for Brian, kind of on the same subject of being out of state. What about the states who say that it's illegal to sell liquor when you're unlicensed, but I go to Kentucky and sell it? Do I get like some kind of amnesty or something, or could I be prosecuted in my own state because
you're
It's like when you go on. It's like when you go to the dispensary, right?
I mean, the sale would be in Kentucky. If you're coming from Tennessee and you've got some sort of vintage Tennessee whiskey, and you're going to sell, when you sell it, you actually sell it here, not in Tennessee.
So I can't ship it. I can't say, hey, I'll PayPal you the money and ship the bottle to Kentucky.
You still might be able to do that. The sale might be happening here. It's a pretty deep in the weeds legal question, but
Do it now.
Where is the sale happening?
The transaction actually in the cloud. That's
in the cloud. That's right.
On the Bitcoin wallets.
Bitcoin. That's right.
So, as we're talking about this and what it's going to lead to, because, let's be honest, like, you're not going to see vintage spirits be sold at a reasonable price at any of these places. But however, when we look at the secondary markets, we've seen that at one point eBay would shut down. However, if anybody's actually looked at eBay in about the past month and a half, there's a lot of stuff that has just flown underneath the radar. There's a lot of stuff that's actually on eBay now. So are we seeing the rise of bourbon being sold again on eBay, or is just eBay not paying attention to this point, and then those just need to be flagged and taken down?
You mean it's more than just empty bottles and velvet bags now?
It is more than just empty bottles and velvet bags. I mean, I've seen you name it. There's all kinds of stuff. There's not a lot of vintage stuff, but there are your high end bourbons that are being sold on there. However, this is one thing that people always need to realize, and this is my take on it, is that after you pay your eBay and PayPal fees, which eat about anywhere between 15 to 18% of the total sale, you now have a recorded transaction, and you need to keep that under an idea that this is a recorded transaction that's happened inside of eBay, so that's not going anywhere anytime soon. So just remember that if you're trying to sell something on eBay, that you can't hide this anymore.
When you brought this up, I went and read the rules on alcohol sales, and it's like it seems like nothing applies to sell bourbon on you can't do it, right? The rules.
It's what it says. However, there are some things that say that if you are a licensed liquor retailer, that you can actually do it. But from what I looked at, and I was scrolling through, looking at some usernames, none of these people look like
it didn't seem like they were retailers. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's why I didn't really see anything like that. So I was kind of taken back a little bit because this was an avenue where people used to buy and sell stuff all the time without any of the typical means we do today. However, it seems that it's starting to open back up a little bit, and people see those high dollars that they're getting sold for way more than, as I said, 15 to 20% more than what you would get on a normal forum. However, I don't think anybody's taken into account what you have to do in PayPal and eBay fees. And then you also have to worry about PayPal goods. And once you ship it and somebody says, oh, it's broken, and you can't do anything about it, you can't get your money back. So buyer beware, or should I say seller mostly beware on selling on eBay. But I don't know if you guys have any more things to add about the eBay stuff.
Yeah, I looked. I remember you told me about it to see if it was retail people who were selling, and it didn't look like it at all. So maybe it's just you have to attach a retail license to individual account or something. But it seemed like for a while eBay did a pretty good job of cleaning all that up. So it just was a little surprising that all of a sudden they just were okay with it. So I don't know. Maybe it's a sting operation. So
layoffs at eBay.
Yeah.
It's all one person and just a few usernames.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we I don't know if there's anything else to touch on with that. So we can move on a little bit. So it's been talked about in quite a few forums over the past week and a half. I know that this bourbon has actually started spreading across some of the states already. And maybe it's not bourbon, but Crown Royal has now put out a bourbon mash blended Canadian whiskey. It says this new product is made with a bourbon mash bill. Blaster Blenders aged Crown Royal Canadian distilled whiskey in a unique combination of new charred American oak and first fill bourbon barrels, imparting a subtle oakness and richer vanilla character. It has the complexity of a bourbon, but the smooth sipping flavor one expects from Crown Royal.
Does it come in a University of Louisville bag?
It does not. It does not. But it does have a nice fancy new label, and it does come in a faux wooden box, kind of like the Rebel Yale 10-year.
Faux wooden is the best.
Mm-hmm. So has anybody actually seen it or tried it or know anything more about it?
So I got a question about it, and this came up. I think it was Skew that posed the question. Of course, it did get approved, but how is it that they can put bourbon mash on the label?
Well, it's because
TTB approves anything, but
sure, yeah, they don't have anyone minding the store, but all they're saying is it's bourbon mash, so they're not calling it a bourbon, and that's the technicality there.
That's where
bourbon.
I was wondering
from bourbon mash.
I think it was Skew who was saying it for it to be so prominently on the bottle that could lead to confusion, but I guess that's more of kind of like one of those class action things of, is the consumer fooled by it, or should, does pretty much everyone know that Crown is Canadian? Is there any other neutral grain spirit in here like there is with regular Crown, or is it?
Well, since it's Canadian whiskey, they can put neutral grain spirits in it.
Yeah.
And they're calling it prominently on the bottle Canadian whiskey.
Huh.
So I think they're building in their defense for anyone who thinks that the word bourbon is too prominent.
But ultimately, that's probably got to come from a lawsuit, right? I mean,
right.
TTB is going to approve just about anything that's got the right statements on it, and then it's up to somebody else to file a class
Say they were
action lawsuit.
confused or say that, right.
Right.
Which that whole thing, I mean, I think that's probably a tricky one to convince a judge and everyone else that you were confused by it and forced purchase. But with this, weren't the private barrels that Crown did a few years back, isn't that the exact same thing? Weren't those all from a bourbon mash bill, new charred oak barrels? So is this just pure marketing of a product that's kind of been out there here and there over the last few years, or is it?
I think it's getting rid of stock.
Okay. Yeah.
Didn't they
that's
blend
my
in?
guess.
Didn't they blend in some whiskey that was aged in uncharred barrels too? I thought I read that somewhere. I haven't read much about it yet, but
That I don't know. I
Scott
just going by with what I read. So
Scott Rittenbauer, Bo. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it says Crown Royal Bourbon Mash Blended Canadian Whiskey as Jim Murray's Whiskey of the Year calendar now.
That's pretty good.
I don't think you're too far off.
Scott called it right there.
Yeah.
I also like
Kevin. Yeah, and Kevin corrected me. No, that was the rye that they did on the private barrels from the coffee heavy still.
Coffee still here.
Yeah.
I also like Chris's comment that he says half the public thinks Crown is bourbon anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
I always love the comment when I get from, no, I only drink the good stuff. I'm Crown only. I'm like, oh man, okay.
No, I'd be interested to see what it's about, but yeah, I think I don't think there's anybody that says they've been ever blown away by a type of Crown. At least I haven't. Maybe because I haven't tried it in 10 years. But
the LaSalle Crown, there's the
That apple Crown would be good.
Which one? The apple?
Yeah.
No, there was something. There was an LaSalle XR or something like that.
Is that
I
the
don't
blue
know all the
box or is that the Waterloo?
Yeah, well, the Waterloo and the LaSalle, two different ones, but both were fantastic.
How do y'all know this much about Crown?
I grew up in Michigan. We were sort of close.
Yeah, some
I've
of the
never
private
thought about
barrels
buying it.
that I had from that rye, the coffee still, were, I'd put them in the excellent range. Some of them weren't great, but some of them were really good. So
yeah.
No options.
All right. Well, so I guess if anybody's out there and they want to send us a message and see if it's actually any good or not, let us know, and we'll
Or
make
send
sure
us
we
all a
pass it.
sample, right?
Or send us a bottle. I don't care. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
if
So
that's the case, I mean, why
yeah,
at it? Why not?
if Crown's listening, like we're open to it. Like we'll be honest, right?
it's worth a try.
Yeah. So there was a rumor. I actually just wrote this down before we started, and this was actually given to me by Bourbon Buddy, who some of you guys actually know already. And he sent me a message, and he heard a rumor that OKI, the bourbon that is being sourced from MGP, coming out of New Riff, is no longer going to be done anymore. That they are done actually sourcing all of MGP. They are pushing out all their stocks of OKI. So the last of what you see right now of OKI on the shelves, that it's like 10 years or more, is the last you're going to see of that. So that is a rumor mill that you're going to kind of hear started from him, but we're going to keep pushing it right here. So,
Oh no, what will we do?
But just to say that there's a lot of people out there have private barrel picks of OKI, and there's some stuff that's on the shelves, and it's not a bad bourbon. I mean, it's good MGP bourbon, right?
Bad.
So if you enjoy it, you might want to think about grabbing an extra bottle or two just in case.
What's the reasoning? Or that they just changing the name, or
No, I think
contract distiller?
well they've been distilling so much now for a while that they're going to start pushing their own product now. However, I don't know how long it's going to be until they start actually rebottling or bottling it as their own distillate of OKI. As I said, the only thing that I know is that the current sourced MGP stuff is going to be pushed out to market as much as they can, and then that's going to be the end of it. So they're not severing complete ties with MGP, but they're halting down the process quite a bit, from what I understand.
They make they're the source for Rabbit Hole as well, right?
Correct. At this point, they are.
Yeah.
So is that because they're now pushing out their own product, or they just had a fallout with MGP, or we don't quite know?
They didn't pay their bills.
I don't know if they had a fallout, right? But I mean, they've been building their own product for a while. As Ryan had just said, that they are the contract distiller for Rabbit Hole amongst a bunch of other ones. And so, they've been contract distilling, and they've also been distilling for themselves. So at this point, I don't know how long the operation's been going. I want to say at least 3 to 4 years. So they've got to have some stuff that's been kind of pushed to the side where they are going to start pushing out OKI as their own juice here relatively soon. So I would be remiss to say that I don't know the exact reason why, but again, it's just rumor mill stuff.
Yeah, which I mean, that's kind of what we want to see anyways, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily to phase it out completely, but to start moving to their own distillate and kind of pulling back a little bit on the source stuff. At least for me,
it should be the goal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You start with MGP, and then you've got your own.
Yeah. One day MGP is going to have just surplus stock again. That's what I want to see.
That's right.
See, and then instead of just picking our own roundtable barrel, we'll just come out with our own line and we just source it directly from MGP, right? Because finally they'll have enough that we'll have it cheap enough that we can actually come out with our own line, right?
Although I've heard from inside sources that there's a lot more available than people want you to think. It's not cheap, but there's a lot of bourbon available.
I've got a comment for that offline. We can talk about that when we go to pick the barrel this week or next week.
Nice.
It is next week. Nice.
Is it next week? Oh my God.
23rd.
No. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Sorry. 2 weeks. All right, so we'll go ahead and we're going to close it out. We got one last question because this is always just something that people like to want to know more about us. What is your favorite weeded bourbon ever? And if you just say Weller Special Reserve, go ahead. I'm just going to boot you from the round table. You're out. Like
you're never getting another appearance.
Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
$79.99 on the secondary.
Makers is okay because everybody's at some. Don't get me wrong. I don't know anybody that's even a bourbon collector that doesn't have a bottle of Makers, even a collectible bottle somewhere on their shelves, right? So Makers is okay, but Weller Special Reserve, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut
it gets mixed up with. It gets mixed up. People hear Weller, they just hear Weller. They don't know the difference at first between 12-year and antique and that. So they see Weller and they think it's something that people are paying $100 for.
Well, Nick, so since you feel like chiming in, what's your favorite weeded bourbon that you've ever had? And this could be something that's limited, completely gone, still on the shelves, whatever it is.
Favorite is it's a tough word. It's funny because when we do our favorites of the year, we don't necessarily pick our highest rated whiskeys of the year. We actually deliberately kind of pick the ones that just stand out to us the most. And I think my favorite, sorry, I might steal somebody's thunder here, but the blend of mash bills just always sticks out in my mind as really kind of a, this Parker's Heritage blend of mash bills as just a really unique whiskey. I was fortunate to get they released it in 3 different proofs. It was barrel proof, and I was fortunate to get the bottle of the highest proof at the time. And honestly, it was back when it wasn't really hard. It is hard to get as it can be now, although depending on the year, it can be easier to get Parker's. But it's been a fantastic bottle, and ironically, a local whiskey bar here has kind of received, for whatever reason, these blended mash bills bottles kind of randomly. And Eric, one of the other guys that does Breaking Bourbon, we both live in Syracuse, and I think we've single-handedly drank the 2 bottles they've had over the years. They've priced it at like $12 a pour, and no one seems to know what it is or go for it. And so every time we'd go back, it's still there, and it still looks exactly the same as how we left it. So that's one that just stands out in my mind.
Sounds like we need to go bourbon hunting in Syracuse.
Yeah.
All right, so Ryan, it sounds like he took yours a little bit there, huh?
Yeah, but I had a couple that I was like torn between. So I guess I have 2 left now that the blend of mash bills is gone. The Weeded Warrior, I was lucky enough to have that at Bill Thomas's house. It was awesome. And then I had a JPS private selection from Husk 18 year. That
Wow.
I guess that was pretty fantastic. So those are probably my two favorite. They're like true unicorns. You'll never find them. So sorry guys, you'll never be able to try them probably.
I was about to say those are definitely some unicorns right there. And yeah, I've had JPS 18 before. I've had some Stitzel Weller. It's delicious stuff. So Blake or Brian, go for it.
Okay, I'll go.
Go ahead, Blake.
But first, I just wanted to go ahead and give Kenny's answer because he was in the Bourboner blind tasting number 2, which was weeded. So his favorite is the Poor Man's Pappy from a blender.
Has to be in the Ninja Bullet
I don't want him to say anything else. I want him to give credit where credit is due. No, but mine is, it's got to be William LaRue Weller. I've had some other ones that definitely stick out. There was a private selection. It actually wasn't even a private selection. It was a store down here who tried to get a private selection, JPS 18, but couldn't. So Trey Zeller sent him a sample of a barrel-proof version of some leftovers, and it was just unbelievable. But that seems a little unfair to add that into the mix. So I'm going to stick with a
true unicorn.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with William LaRue Weller. No specific year. I think it's pretty much consistently good. There's some ups and downs, but their margin of error is very small with that lineup, in my opinion.
This year's was fantastic. 17 was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I got
to open up my 17 at some point then to compare.
I'll be there to do it for you.
Come over then. You'll have it on
January
the
22nd or 23rd.
Yeah, I guess.
Yep, the night of the 22nd.
I've probably got a couple. I've a JPS 17 that some buddies gave me for my 40th birthday before I could really appreciate what it was. It was half gone, and then just realized how great it was, and it just kept getting better. I mean, I can't say enough good about that 17 year that came out. And then two others that are a little less fair, like Blake was saying. I mean, I've had the privilege in a thunderstorm of trying some old weeded bourbon at Willett and getting drilled out of the barrel. And that's all atmosphere, but it was fantastic. Old weeded bourbon there is just, I mean, can't be beat. And then some of the C barrels from Willett that were weeded.
Yeah.
The C, whatever it was, C14D. 22. I don't even remember the numbers. Yeah, but 22-year-old weeded. I mean, it had this Tootsie Roll quality to it. And instead of that, cherry blast, it had this Tootsie Roll, and it's just fantastic. So I personally think a lot of the weededs can handle that extra age more than the rye is the secondary grain.
Softer.
And they've just been fantastic.
Those C barrels, they were Bernheim weed, right?
I understand, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the rumor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to kind of close things up, some people in the chat were saying Weller Centennial, how they miss it. Kevin Brickerhoff said that he's not sure, but his favorite might have been the Heaven Hill Select Stock weeded 8-year Cognac barrel finish. That was, I think, a few years ago. But for me, it's been mentioned already, like Stitzel Dusties, when you get the opportunity to actually sit down and enjoy them, when, as Brian had mentioned earlier in the show, that at some point people consider them dirt and garbage. But now when you get the opportunity to actually crack open a bottle and get to enjoy it, I had an Old Fitz Dusty at one of my buddy's house. And I mean, it's just good stuff. It's not like the very, very old Fitz or anything like that, but it was just an Old Fitz 1849 or something like that. And then I would say one of my favorites of probably the recent, maybe like 4 years of just buying and stuff like that would be, it's without remiss to say of Parker's 1 year passing, but the Parker's Heritage 13-year, we did the 127 proof, I believe, was the better of the two batches.
Yep.
And then to kind of just go along with what everybody's saying in here, the best bang for your buck that you can get on weeded bourbon today is probably OWA store picks. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, I want to say thank you, everybody, for joining in the show tonight. This was fun to go around the table. Let's do it one last time so you can just give an idea of where you blog at and how they can follow you. So Blake, go ahead and kick it off.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. Enjoyed it. I'm Blake from Bourboner. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, BOURBONR, or bourboner.com/blog.
I'm Nick from Breaking Bourbon. Find us online at breakingbourbon.com or Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Breaking Bourbon.
Ryan, you
Brian.
gonna do one?
Now,
Well,
Brian, you
go
got to
ahead,
do it.
Brian.
Ryan got to jump in.
Yeah,
Brian's our closer, man. Yeah.
He's
All right,
got
he's our
that
closer.
cleanup. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I'm Brian with Sippin' Corn. If you're interested at all in the legal side of bourbon, check out the blog, Sippin' Corn Blogspot. Check me out at Twitter at Sippin' Corn, a little bit at on Facebook, of course, Sippin' Corn still. And here's a drink of Heaven Hill, 6th year in memory of the 1-year anniversary of Parker's passing.
So,
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers, absolutely. So I want to say thank you guys again for joining with us tonight. And it's always a pleasure because this is always a fan favorite. It's fun to kind of get the real life banter. People can join in and they can talk. They can sit there and tell us what their favorite wheated bourbon was. So it's always great. Make sure you always, if you're not doing anything right now, you're not doing anything 10 minutes from now, you're not doing anything an hour from now, make sure you go and you take the Bourbon Pursuit survey. So bourbonpursuit.com/survey so we can get an idea of your buying habits. We're going to use all that good data to mine it and then take it to people and say, look at what people buy because of this podcast, right? So please go ahead. And
you don't even have to click like the terms of agreement. You know, you just we're telling you what we're doing with your info.
You agree no matter what.
This is the terms of service right here. Well, you should have heard it on the show that we were going to sell your.
But we will give you a $50 Amazon gift card if you win. We've got just a few hundred more entries, and then we're going to give that one away. So I want to say thank you, everybody. That we actually have a little bit over 500 people that have responded already.
You guys could do an eBay gift card now.
Oh, it's my jacket.
Yeah, that's what we should do. We should do an eBay gift card. So now you can go and you can buy those bottles off of eBay, right? All right.
Let me jump in one more time, Kenny, and say thanks to John Brown. Appreciate you reading. And Kevin, yes, I enjoyed the samples. I mean, I appreciate everyone on these comments. Best parts of this is flipping back and forth and looking at those comments, and we encourage everybody to do that. That's great. Thanks, guys.
Yep, I agree.
I gotta say to John Brown's comment, it's actually ironic. I myself fell victim to that too, Brian, a number of years ago. I think I just went back to post 1 and just started just going through them chronologically. I spent at least a couple hours reading through them.
That's great. Well, check October 2018. There's some book called Bourbon Justice coming out, so there'll be a few more stories.
Looking forward to it.
I heard it's a good writer.
Hope it's ghostwritten.
There you go. All right. Well, cool.
Right.
So
with that, it out, or you close it out. You go.
Well, let me just go ahead and just give a plug for Patreon as well. So make sure that if you do like the show, you support us. Go to Patreon. Also, I don't think Nick said it, but make sure you take care of Breaking Bourbon on Patreon as well. So patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit. We've actually been doing a few different giveaways on there that haven't really been broadcasted. So if you, I'm actually just kind of like clearing out a whole shelf of grab bag and swag stuff that either doesn't fit Ryan or I, or that it's just not good enough for a regular good giveaway. So we're just doing a few giveaways now every single month. So make sure you go and you join us on Patreon. You can get entered into some of those giveaways as well. And now with that, Ryan, go ahead and close us out.
I have to give credit to Brown and Foreman. I want to say thank you for this product. This Early Times Ball and Bond has been the best thing that's happened to bourbon in a while for me. And I've chased down about 10 bottles of this stuff. It is absolutely fantastic. And I probably shouldn't tell you all, but it is really good stuff.
But
anyways,
our last giveaway was we actually did blind samples of whiskey of the years that we had all chosen as part of this round table. And I actually had Ryan over one day, And he's like, all right, you know that whatever Willet barrel that I had chosen? He was like, I changed it. Now it's this early times bottled and bond stuff. So
Nice.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's $20 for, like a liter. So it's great price, fantastic juice. But thank you all for all joining us. I know it takes up a lot of your time, and this is obviously one of the coolest things we do because we get the fan interaction, your all's interaction. So I look forward to it every time. So if you guys have show suggestions, comments, feedback, please let us know, and we'll see you next time.